Ethan was fixing the old wooden fence at the edge of the colony. The morning air was cold, and the grass was still wet from the night dew. He had just tightened the last nail when he heard a sound coming from the forest. It was not the sound of an animal. It was slow, careful footsteps. As if someone did not want to be heard, he turned his head, expecting maybe a lost traveler. Instead, he saw her, Lyra, the alien girl he had met a year ago. Back then, she was thin, weak, and almost starving. He had given her food and a blanket, thinking he would never see her again, but here she was, standing at the edge of the clearing. Looking right at him, Ethan's chest tightened. She was different now. Her clothes were cleaner, made of strange silver fabric. Her hair, which had been tangled before, now shone like smooth black silk. Her big, bright eyes still carried that same quiet sadness. But there was something else, something heavy in her expression. Then he saw the figure behind her, tall, proud, and unlike any alien he had ever seen. The woman's skin was a deep shade of blue, smooth like polished stone. Her eyes glowed faintly in the morning light. She wore a long cloak with markings that looked like they told a story. Every movement she made felt deliberate, like a queen walking into her court. Ethan froze. He had never been this close to an alien who radiated such authority. The woman stopped beside Lyra, placing a protective hand on her shoulder, her gaze locked on Ethan, unblinking. Then she spoke in broken human words. "We have come. For you." The words hit him like a stone. For me? Ethan felt a rush of questions in his mind. Why would they come for him? Had something happened to Lyra? Was there danger coming to the colony? He stepped forward slowly, trying to hide his confusion. "Lyra," he said softly, "it's been a long time." The girl's lips curved in the faintest smile, but her eyes stayed serious. "Yes," she said, her voice quiet. "We must speak." They began walking toward him. Every step of the tall woman felt measured, like she was testing the ground before trusting it. The air between them felt thick. When they stopped in front of Ethan, he noticed other colonists peeking from windows and doorways. People were already whispering. Humans didn't usually get personal visits from aliens, especially not ones that looked like royalty. Ethan gestured toward his small cabin. "Come inside. We can talk there," he offered. The woman shook her head slowly. "Not yet," she said, her accent heavy. "First, you listen." Lyra glanced at her mother, then at Ethan. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. "A year ago, you saved me," she said. "You gave me food, shelter, when no one else would." Ethan nodded, feeling a mix of embarrassment and warmth. "It was nothing," he replied. "You were in trouble. Anyone would have done the same." The tall woman's eyes narrowed slightly. "Not anyone," she said firmly. "You did." Her tone made it sound like Ethan's action carried far more meaning than he realized. Before Ethan could ask, the woman stepped closer. "My name is Serena," she said, "mother of Lyra, keeper of her life." She straightened, her height almost forcing Ethan to tilt his head back to look at her. "By our law, what you did cannot be forgotten." Ethan blinked. He didn't understand. Why would giving food and shelter be such a big deal? Sure, it had saved Lyra's life, but he had never thought about it as anything more than basic kindness. Serena's eyes softened slightly. "We traveled far to find you," she continued, "because we have come to make you an offer." "An offer?" The word made Ethan's stomach twist. What kind of offer could an alien queen-like figure bring to a simple farmer in a human colony? And why did it feel like saying yes or no would change his life forever? Before he could ask, Serena turned her head toward Lyra. The young alien girl looked up at Ethan, her lips parting as if she was about to reveal something that had been waiting a long time to be said. But before the words could leave her mouth, A loud crack echoed through the forest like a branch snapping under weight. All three of them turned to look. Something was moving out there, just beyond the tree line. Watching, Ethan felt the hairs on his neck stand up. Whatever was coming. This meeting had just become a lot more complicated. The sound from the forest faded, leaving only the soft rustle of leaves in the wind. Ethan kept his eyes on the tree line, but nothing else moved. Slowly, Serenia lowered her hand from the hilt of a curved blade hidden under her cloak. Whatever had been out there was gone for now. Ethan let out a breath, then turned back to them. "Let's talk inside," he said again, this time more firmly. After a brief pause, Serenia gave a slow nod. They followed him into the small cabin, the wooden floor creaking under their steps. The room was simpler table, 2 chairs, a narrow bed, and shelves with a few tools and books. Sonia's sharp eyes scanned everything, as if weighing his life through the objects he owned. Lyra moved quietly. Sitting at the table without being told, Ethan poured water into 3 cups. Sliding one toward each of them, Lyra took a sip, then spoke in her soft voice. "You remember the day we met?" She said. "I was alone. Afraid? I thought I would die." Ethan nodded, his hands resting on the table. "You were lost, and no one else wanted to help," he replied. It was the right thing to do. Serenia's gaze locked onto him. "In our law," she began slowly, "to give life to one of our kind is no small thing." Ethan frowned. "I didn't give you life. I just gave you food," he said, almost embarrassed, but Serenia shook her head. "You misunderstand," she said, her voice carrying a strange weight. "You passed the first trial." Ethan blinked. "First trial? What trial?" he asked. Lyra's eyes lowered to her lap, her fingers tightening on the cup. "In my people's tradition," Serenia explained, "to save a life is to bind your spirit to that life." She paused, watching his reaction from that day. "You became part of her fate." The words settled heavily in the air. Ethan leaned back, unsure if this was a story, a belief, or some legal matter in their culture. "And now?" he asked, his voice cautious. "Now," Serenia said, "we are here for the second trial." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "What's that supposed to mean?" Serenia's lips curved slightly, though it was not quite a smile. "It is acceptance," she said. "You must choose if you will take the bond fully." Lyra looked up, her eyes meeting his. She did not look like she was joking. This was not some ceremonial game. There was a deep seriousness in the way she sat. Still and waiting, Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. "I'm sorry, but where I come from, we don't have spirit bonds," he said. Serenia's expression hardened. "And yet, your actions started one," she replied. "You cannot pretend it does not exist." The tension in the room grew. Outside, a few colonists were walking by. Trying to sneak glances through the window, Ethan noticed and closed the curtain. The last thing he needed was rumors spreading before he even understood what was going on. "Look," Ethan said, trying to keep his tone calm. "I respect your customs, but I can't agree to something I don't understand." Lyra's lips parted slightly, but she didn't speak. Her mother, however, leaned forward. "Then understand this," Serenia said. "If you refuse, the bond breaks. But the one whose life was saved must bear the shame forever." Ethan stared at her. "Shame? For being saved?" he asked. Confused, Serenia nodded slowly. "Yes," she said, "because it means the Savior did not find them worthy of standing beside." Lyra's head dipped lower, her hands curling into fists. Ethan felt a pang in his chest. He had never wanted to hurt her, but this whole thing felt so sudden. Like being caught in a current he didn't see coming. He decided to slow things down. "Stay here tonight," he said. "Both of you. We can talk more tomorrow." Serenia tilted her head slightly. "We will stay. But the second trial cannot be delayed forever," she warned. That night, Ethan lay awake, listening to the quiet hum of alien voices from the other room. The words were soft, but sharp. Like Lyra and her mother were arguing, he couldn't understand the language, but he could hear the tension in it. At one point, Lyra's voice cracked, and there was silence. Ethan stared at the ceiling, wondering what kind of trouble he had stepped into. Outside, the forest was still, but the feeling from earlier, the sense of being watched, returned. Ethan stood by the window, looking into the dark shapes of the trees. Somewhere out there, eyes were watching this small cabin, and something told him that whatever this second trial was, he wouldn't be the only one interested in its outcome. The morning light slipped through the cracks in the wooden walls. Ethan woke early, the memory of last night still fresh in his mind. Lyra and Serenia were already awake, sitting at the table, their voices low. When they noticed him, they stopped speaking. It was clear the conversation had been about him. Ethan rubbed his face and sat down. "All right," he said, "no more guessing. Tell me what this second trial really is." Serenia's gaze was steady, her posture straight. "This is not easy for a human to hear," she said slowly. "But the second trial is union." Ethan frowned. "Union? You mean marriage?" he asked. Lyra's cheeks flushed a faint silver blue, her eyes darting away. Serenia nodded. "Yes, in your words. Marriage," for a moment. Ethan thought they were joking, but Serenia's face was carved in stone. There was no hint of humor. "You saved my daughter," she continued, "and in our way. That makes you the only one worthy to stand beside her." Ethan leaned back, trying to process it. "This is a huge misunderstanding," he said. "Where I come from, helping someone doesn't mean I have to marry them." Serenia's eyes narrowed slightly. "Then where you come from has no honor," she replied coldly. Lyra flinched at her mother's words. "Mother," she said softly, "please." But Serenia did not look away from Ethan. Her voice was sharper now. "Do you think it is small? To save the life of the one who carries my blood. To keep her from death when the world had already decided to take her." Ethan's hands clenched on the table. "I didn't think of it like that," he admitted. "I just did what was right." Serenia's tone softened slightly. "And in doing so, you made her yours." Lyra's gaze lifted, meeting his eyes for the first time that morning. Her voice trembled. But she spoke clearly. "It is not about owning me," she said. "It is about choosing to be the one who will never turn away." Ethan felt something tighten in his chest. She wasn't begging. And she wasn't demanding. She was simply telling him what the bond meant to her. Still, this was too much. Too fast. "You don't even know me that well," he said. Lyra's lips curved faintly. "I know enough," she replied. "You didn't leave me to die when everyone else did." Before Ethan could respond, there was a sharp knock on the cabin door. He opened it to find 2 colony guards standing outside. Their faces were tense. "Ethan," one said, "we've had reports of alien movement near the perimeter. Your guests may have brought trouble." Serenia stepped forward, her cloak brushing the floor. "If there is danger, it follows us, not him," she said firmly. The guards exchanged uneasy looks. "We're under orders to keep outsiders away from the main settlement," one replied. "We'll need you to come with us for questioning." Ethan's jaw tightened. "No," he said. "They're staying here, with me." The guards hesitated, but didn't push the matter yet. They left, but Ethan knew they'd be back. Closing the door, he turned to Serenia and Lyra. "Whatever this marriage thing is, it's already making things dangerous for all of us," he said. Serenia shook her head. "No," she said. "The danger was already here. You just didn't see it." Ethan sat back down, his mind spinning. He looked at Lyra. "Tell me the truth. Do you want this? Or is it just your people's law?" Lyra hesitated, her eyes dropping to her hands. Then she looked up, and there was no hesitation in her voice. "I want it," she said simply. Ethan stared at her. She didn't look like someone trapped by duty. She looked like someone who had made a choice. That made it harder to speak the words forming in his throat. I don't know if I can, he said quietly. Saranya rose from her chair, her shadow falling over him. You have until the sun sets to decide, she said, because once the third trial begins, there will be no turning back. Ethan didn't even know there was a third trial. But from the tone of her voice, it sounded like something far more dangerous than marriage. And deep in his gut, he knew whatever it was. It was already moving toward them, just like the unseen watcher in the forest. The air in the cabin felt heavy after Saranya's warning. Ethan stood by the window, watching the pale sunlight spread over the settlement. The colony streets were quiet, but he could see people moving in the distance. They were whispering, glancing toward his home. Word was spreading fast. He turned to Lyra, who sat at the table, her hands folded in her lap. You know, this is making the colony nervous, he said. She nodded slowly. They fear what they do not understand. She replied, her voice calm. Ethan sighed, and I'm not sure I understand it either. Serena stood near the door, her arms crossed. It is simple, she said. You saved her. You are bound to her. Ethan shook his head. For humans, it's not that simple, he said. We don't have laws that force someone to marry because they helped someone. Saranya's eyes narrowed. Your people let bonds fade. Let life debts die. She asked, her tone sharp. Ethan didn't answer right away. He didn't want to admit that, in human society, good deeds didn't always come with lifelong ties. Finally, he said, we choose who we love. And when we love, the words seemed to strike Saranya like a challenge. You speak of choice. She said, we speak of honor, before Ethan could respond. There was another knock at the door, harder this time. When he opened it, the colony leader, Marcus, stood outside with 2 guards. His expression was tight, his voice low but firm. Ethan, we need to talk. Alone, Ethan stepped outside, closing the door behind him. Marcus crossed his arms. I'm hearing reports that you're harboring 2 aliens, one of them a high-ranking figure, he said. You know the rules, no unsanctioned alien contact without approval. Ethan's jaw clenched. They're not a threat, he said. They came here peacefully. Marcus shook his head. You don't know that? Our security has spotted movement in the forest armed movement. Ethan glanced toward the tree line. Remembering the feeling of being watched, maybe they're here to protect them, he suggested. Or maybe they're here to take something from us, Marcus replied, his eyes narrowing. Either way, you're making this colony a target. Back inside the cabin, Lyra and Saranya had heard every word. Saranya stepped forward. They think we bring war, she said quietly. They do not understand that we bring choice. Ethan sat down, rubbing his forehead. This whole thing is spiraling, he muttered. Lyra's voice broke the silence. If you say no, the shame will follow me forever, she said, her eyes locked on his. Not just for me, but for my mother too. Ethan felt the weight of her words. He could see it in her eyes. This wasn't just tradition. It was survival. If he rejected her, it would brand her as unwanted in her own world. But if he accepted, the colony might never trust him again. The tension grew thicker when Marcus returned in the afternoon. This time, he didn't knock, he stepped right inside. You have until nightfall to send them away, he said. If you don't, we'll remove them by force. Saranya moved before Ethan could speak. She stood between Marcus and her daughter, our cloak shifting like the shadow of a storm. If you try, she said in a low, dangerous tone, you will see why our enemies fear us. Marcus hesitated, his eyes narrowing, but he backed out. When the door closed, Ethan turned to Saranya. You're making things worse, he said. She shook her head. No, I am showing them you are worth defending. Lyra stepped closer to Ethan. Her voice was soft but steady. Tonight, you must choose. Them or us, she said. Ethan looked at her, and for a moment, the noise of the outside world faded. All he could see was the girl he had once found starving in the wild, and the woman she had grown into someone strong, proud, and yet still vulnerable in this strange place. He didn't know which choice was right, but he knew that once he made it, there would be no going back. Outside, the sky was beginning to darken. Somewhere beyond the forest, movement stirred again. The third trial was coming whether he was ready for it or not. The forest loomed like a wall of shadows as the last light of day faded. Ethan stood at the edge of the settlement. A small pack slung over his shoulder. Lyra was beside him, her silver blue eyes steady. Serenia stood a few paces ahead, her tall figure outlined by the glow of the setting sun. Neither of them had said much since the decision was made. Marcus and 2 guards watched from a distance. They didn't try to stop him, but their expressions said enough. They believed he was making a mistake. Ethan ignored them. He wasn't leaving because he trusted Serenia completely. He was leaving because he needed answers, and those answers would only come if he followed them. They stepped into the forest, the air cooling as the trees swallowed the light. The smell of damp earth and old leaves filled the air. Every sound felt louder, hear each snap of a twig, each rustle of branches. Ethan kept his eyes moving, aware that they were not alone. Serenia moved like she knew the path, her long cloak brushing against the undergrowth. Lyra stayed close too. Ethan, her smaller steps quiet and careful. You should know, she whispered, this trial. It is not just a test of your strength. Ethan glanced at her. What is it then? She hesitated. It is a test of trust yours and ours. They walked for hours, the forest growing darker, until they reached a rocky clearing. The air here felt different, colder, sharper. Serenia stopped and turned to face Ethan. This place is watched, she said. Our people and our enemies both have eyes here. Before Ethan could ask what she meant, a faint glow appeared in the trees. Shapes emerged from the shadows, 3 figures, tall and armored, their eyes glowing faintly in the dark. They carried weapons that looked half organic, half metal. Lyra stepped slightly in front of Ethan. They are my mother's guards, she said quietly. Do not fear them. The guards spoke in the alien tongue, their voices deep and melodic. Serenia replied sharply, her tone commanding. After a few tense moments, the guards stepped aside. You will walk with them, Serenia said. They will take us to the place where your choice will be tested. Ethan followed, feeling the weight of unseen eyes tracking their every step. They moved deeper into the forest until the trees gave way to a wide canyon. A narrow bridge of woven roots stretched across the drop. Far below, the sound of rushing water echoed. This is it? Ethan asked. Serenia nodded. On the other side is the proving ground, she said. To cross is to accept the trial. Ethan frowned. What happens if I don't cross? Serenia's gaze was unwavering. Then you have chosen to walk away from her forever. Ethan looked at Lyra. Her face was calm, but he could see the tension in her hands. She wasn't afraid of the crossing. She was afraid of his choice. He took a slow breath and stepped onto the bridge. The roots shifted slightly under his weight, but they held halfway across. A low growl echoed from the canyon walls. Ethan froze from the shadows below. A massive winged shape rose into the air, its glowing eyes fixed on him. The creature's leathery wings beat against the air, sending shivers through the bridge. Lyra called out, "Don't run, keep moving." Ethan forced himself forward, each step making the bridge sway. The creature swooped closer, its jaws snapping at the last moment. An arrow of glowing energy shot from the far side. One of Serenia's guards had fired. The creature shrieked and veered away, vanishing into the shadows. Ethan reached the other side, his breath coming fast. Serenia stepped forward, her expression unreadable. You crossed, she said simply. Ethan glanced back at the bridge. That was more than just a test of trust. It was a test of staying alive. He said, Serenia's lips curved slightly. They are often the same thing. She replied. Lyra moved to his side, her voice quiet but warm. You didn't turn back, she said. That means more than you know. Ethan didn't reply, somewhere deep inside. He knew this was only the beginning of the trial. Whatever waited in the proving ground would demand more than courage. It would demand a decision that would change everything. The proving ground was not what Ethan expected. He thought it would be some arena or ceremonial hall. Instead, it was a quiet valley hidden deep between cliffs. A stream cut through the center, its waters glowing faintly under the moonlight. Strange flowers swayed in the night breeze, their petals releasing tiny sparks of light. Serenia walked ahead, leading him to a wide stone circle in the middle of the valley. This is where the final question is asked, she said, her voice steady. The alien guards spread out along the edges. Keeping silent watch, Lyra stood at Ethan's side. Her hands clasped together. She was calm, but her eyes never left him. Ethan looked around. What is it you want me to do here? He asked. Serenia turned to face him. You have passed the trial of rescue. And the trial of trust, she said. Now you must face the trial of union. He felt the words like a stone dropping into still water. This is where I decide, he said quietly. Serenia nodded. Yes. But you must understand, this is not just marriage as you know it. She stepped closer, her cloak brushing the ground. In our way, union is a merging of lives, she explained. If you accept, you will not only be bound to my daughter, you will be bound to our people. Our enemies will be your enemies. Our home will be your home. Ethan's eyes narrowed slightly. And if I refuse? Serenia's gaze did not waver. Then you will never see her again, and the bond will be broken with ritual. But her name will carry the mark of rejection for the rest of her life. Lyra's voice was soft, but it cut through the quiet. I do not ask you out of duty, she said. I ask you because you are the one I would choose. Even without the trials, Ethan's chest tightened. She wasn't forcing him, she was laying her heart bare. But he knew the cost of saying yes was greater than most marriages in the human world. It wasn't just a promise to a person, it was a promise to an entire people. He took a step back, running a hand over his face. This isn't fair, he said. You're asking me to give up my life as I know it. Lyra took a step toward him. And I would give up mine, she replied. I already did, the moment you saved me. The words hit harder than he expected. Ethan remembered the first time he saw her cold, hungry, scared, but still holding on to life. He remembered the way she had looked at him, even then, as if she had decided something about him before. He said a word. Before he could speak again, Serenia raised her hand. You must answer before the moon reaches its peak, she said, pointing to the glowing disk in the sky. You may walk the valley alone. Think on your choice. But when you return to the circle, your words must be final. Ethan walked away from them. Following the glowing stream, his thoughts twisted and tangled with every step. He thought about the colony Marcus, the guards, the way they looked at him like he was betraying them. He thought about Lyra, her quiet strength, her loyalty, and the way she had come back to him after all this time. And he thought about himself, what kind of man he wanted to be when this was over. The night air was cool against his face. Somewhere in the dark, he heard the soft movement of animals, but the valley felt safe, almost like it was holding its breath, waiting for him to decide when he returned to the stone circle. Lyra and Serenia were waiting. The moon was high now, its light spilling over them like silver fire. Ethan stood in the center, his voice steady. I've made my choice, he said. Serenia's eyes studied him, searching for the answer before he spoke it. Lyra's gaze was fixed on him, hope and fear mingling in her eyes. The valley was silent. The stream whispered over stones, and the faint glow from the flowers cast soft light on the stone circle. Ethan stood in the center. Every eye on him, the alien guards were still as statues. Serenia's gaze was sharp. Measuring Lyra's eyes were fixed on his. The way someone watches the moment that will decide their future. "I've made my choice," Ethan repeated, his voice calm but carrying weight. For a long moment, he said nothing more. The quiet stretched, until even the night breeze seemed to pause. Then he looked straight at Lyra. "When I first met you, I didn't think about what it meant," he said. "I just knew you needed help, and I could give it." He took a slow step toward her. "I never thought that moment would bring me here." Standing between two worlds, Lyra's hands trembled. Slightly, though she tried to hide it, Serenia's expression was unreadable. Ethan took a breath. "If I walk away, you'll carry the mark of rejection, and I can't let that happen." He paused, his eyes steady, but more than that. "I don't want to walk away." Lyra's breath caught. The words seemed to ripple through the valley. Even the guards shifted slightly. As if sensing the weight of the moment, Ethan stepped closer until he stood before her. "I'm not saying yes because of your law," he said. "I'm saying yes because I want to stand beside you for the first time since they'd met again." Lyra's face lit with a genuine smile. It wasn't wide or loud. It was soft, but it reached her eyes. Serenia's gaze softened, though her voice still carried formality. "Then it is decided," she said. "You are bound as one." One of the guards stepped forward, carrying a small woven band of silver and black. Serenia took it and placed it around Ethan's wrist. "This is not a chain," she said. "It is a sign to our people, to our enemies, and to yourself that you have chosen." Lyra reached out, her fingers brushing his as she took his other wrist and tied a second band there. Her voice was quiet, but Ethan could hear the emotion beneath it. "You are not alone now, and neither am I." The moment was interrupted by a sudden sound from the cliffs, a sharp, echoing cry. The guards immediately moved into a defensive circle. From the darkness above, figures appeared, moving fast along the ridge. Serenia's voice was calm but firm. "They came to see if you would refuse, and to strike if you did." Ethan's pulse quickened. "So what now?" he asked. Serenia's lips curved faintly. "Now, they will think twice," she said, "because to harm her is to harm you. And no one who has passed the trials is an easy target." The shadowy figures lingered a moment longer before melting back into the night. The danger passed, but the message was clear. Ethan's choice had already changed the way others saw him. They began the journey back as the first light of dawn touched the sky. Lyra walked beside him, her steps quiet, but her presence steady. Serenia led the way, her tall form cutting a clear path through the forest. The valley faded behind them, but the weight of what had happened there stayed in Ethan's chest. When they reached the edge of the colony, Marcus was waiting. He looked from Ethan to Lyra, then to Serenia. "I take it you made your choice," he said. Ethan nodded. "Yes. And I'm standing by it." Marcus studied him for a long moment, then shook his head. "You've just made things complicated," he said, turning to leave. Ethan watched him go, knowing those words were probably true, but he also knew he wouldn't change what he had done. Later, as the sun rose fully, Ethan stood outside his cabin. Lyra was beside him, looking out toward the forest. The bands on their wrists caught the light, glinting faintly. She glanced at him, her voice soft. "Now, we face the stars together." Ethan met her gaze and gave a small nod. Whatever came next, colony politics, alien enemies, or more trials, they would face it side by side, and for the first time since she had returned, he felt certain that his choice was the right one.